Hey everyone, welcome to another episode at the Warehouse Underground podcast series. This is episode number 7. I'm Ben, the host of the show today, and joining me on the show is Keivan Shahida. Now, he is the co-founder and CEO of a newly launched company called Response. Now, I don't want to reveal too much in the intro here about what Response does because I don't want to steal his thunder, but they are in the business of helping operations control their indirect spend from the ops side to the procurement side and everywhere in between. And so for me, when I evaluate products like this, I always think about two things. One is it help me as a leader have more visibility, better measurements so that I can manage better. And two, selfishly, is it going to help save me time and the time of my team members? Is it going to give me hours back in my week and make my work more efficient? And Response is definitely checking both of those boxes and many, many more. So I'm really excited about having this guy on the show today. He's very interesting, very cool, and I think you guys will get a lot out of this. And so with that, I will bring him onto the stage. Keivan, welcome, my friend. Thank you for joining the Warehouse Underground podcast. And how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Good, good. Now, first, before we start, I do just want to say thank you again because I know that you are the CEO of a new startup. And so it's not as if you have 40 or 50 hours out of your week that are just discretionary and leisure time, right? I know you're very busy. So thank you very much again for devoting some of that time for the show and coming on. I really do appreciate that.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Cool. So I gave a little bit of an intro to Response in the beginning, but just tell the audience a little bit about you, your background, and kind of what brought you here today and where you are with this new company.
Yeah, definitely. Grew up on the East Coast, suburbs just outside of New York City. Very entrepreneurial family, always talking about business. It
Yeah.
was always kind of just like in my blood that, I wanted to start something even from a really early age, and ended up going to Cornell to study engineering there, studied computer science. So really learning about how to build applications, build software, again, fueling that kind of entrepreneurial journey. And post Cornell, we got into Y Combinator, which is one of the top startup accelerators in the world. They're behind companies like Airbnb, Flexport, Stripe, DoorDash, you name it. I think today, the collective value of companies that YC was the first investor in is something like $800 billion, believe it or not.
Big number.
Big number. And so we're very fortunate to have been backed by them and have their support. And yeah, that's a little bit about my backstory there.
Cool. So I talked a little bit about this in the intro, but on the website, it states that Response is going to control indirect spend from end to end. But that can mean a lot of different things. I know coming from ops, there's spend all over the place, labor, supplies, materials. So what exactly does that mean and kind of what problem is Response solving for operations and organizations out there?
We're focused on physical goods. So anything from packaging to equipment. You step into a facility, you look around, the light bulbs, the janitorial supplies, the office supplies, any physical goods that you need to purchase to run your operation, we've put under one hood. And what I mean by that is we've built out integrations with the top 100 plus industrial, packaging, and business suppliers in the US, put them under one roof. And then we give companies that use Response, our customers, spend controls so they can granularly control exactly which products their teams can buy. They can set up approval flows so that way that spend is flowing in a compliant way. And ultimately, because all those products are in one place, they have real-time visibility into that spend. So there's no surprises at the end of the month.
Now, I mean, are you now as a ops manager? I have a background as an ops manager, and so I bought all kinds of different supplies from pallets to shrink wrap to corrugate to equipment, you name it. But I've also worked closely with the procurement side of the business, like the buyers of the inventory, et cetera. And so sometimes there's a bleed over there in some organizations, and other times it's not. Right. Some organizations will just say, no, the ops managers is the ones that's going to handle on this and only this. But other times it will be like, well, the ops manager can do it, but they have to have approval from X or somebody in the company. So are you on the inventory side of it? Because I know inventory is a huge buy, obviously through a lot of companies use, but or more so on, like you said, like the supplies, or just kind of both, really, just kind of anything that people might buy in an operation.
Yeah, I'd say traditionally it's all the non-inventory stuff. So, we always like to listeners will obviously
Yeah,
get this, but just for anyone who may not, like the example we always like to use is if you're Warby Parker, the direct spend is going to be the glasses themselves that they produce and they sell. The
yeah.
indirect spend, which is what we like to cover, is everything else. It's the box that it's shipped in, it's the tape that goes on that box, it's the cleaning supplies that are used to mop the floor in the facility where it's shipped out, and everything in between.
I got you. Now, so one of the things, and we actually talked about this in a call. I think we had an exploratory call a couple weeks ago, and one of the challenges that a lot of operations have, at least I've experienced this, and I know others have as well, is it always seems like there's a big delay in what the spend was on certain things. So you may get that email or that call from a controller on, say, March 11th, asking you about, hey, what was the deal with this spend, or why were you over budget in
Mhm.
February? And then you're thinking, well, I don't really remember. Like, I
Yep.
don't know. I'm kind of focused on March and moving forward now. And so it seems like, for me, in my experiences, like there's a lot of what I call gotchas. Like,
Yeah.
oops, I didn't know about that, or it would have been nice to know that. So is that something that you found too when you were out there and you were kind of meeting with potential customers and learning more about the industry? Was that like a common type thing that you heard as well? Because it's been pretty common for me in my career.
100%. We see it all the time where because teams don't have any sort of real-time insights into their spend, whether that's the exact products that they're buying or the purchase order, delivery receipt, and invoice info, it's really common for that for them to be kind of
Oh yeah,
like hit with it by the next month, because at that point the bookkeepers, accounting, finance team, whoever's looking over it, is now trying to reconcile that spend to close out the
yeah,
books. And sometimes there are going to be question marks, and it's really hard then to go back and rack your brain. And a lot of times in the 3PL space, what ends up happening is they're often billing the cost of those goods that they're purchasing back to their customers, and it can create this mess. And sometimes they just don't end up charging their customers in the end the right amounts, or they forget to charge people because they
yeah.
forget, well, we bought this box, but who did we buy it for? And so when we first started off, the people who took a bet on us were all operators. It was the operations teams, and they had these
See,
inefficiencies, some of the ones that you're talking about. But really, as we've grown and we start to work with more and more companies, we're really seeing that pain almost compounds more and more downstream when all of those purchases at the end of the month are landing on finance's desk. So
hmm,
typically the kinds of customers that succeed with response, the world they're operating in before response, these are mid-market organizations. They're growing. They're at a point where maybe when they started off, they were just a couple facilities, and it was fine to give someone a P card or a charge card to just go buy whatever they need. And people are cutting invoices to vendors because, they're not buying that much stuff. In the grand scheme of things, this is not one of the biggest line items in their P&L. But as they grow, that line item grows as well. And it starts to become this black box where it's all right, we're now
hmm,
spending 10 million bucks on consumables, But if I want to ask any really basic question about that spend and dig deeper, they don't have the answers. And it ends up
Mhm.
taking someone a lot of time downloading reports, sifting through invoices, super manual, grindy work to figure out the answers to that. And so when they work with us, it's like this magical experience where
Yeah.
now they're getting access to that data in real time. And so for the scenario you described, these gotchas, these surprises, they don't happen because as soon as you place that order, before you place the order, you'll be able to see how it's going to affect your spend for the month. So if I'm a warehouse manager or GM of a specific location, I can see in real time, what have I or what has my team been spending this month? How does that compare to last month? How does it compare to where we should be tracking for the month? So there aren't any surprises anymore. And then downstream, because all those purchases are happening in one place and we have this clean coded data, finance is then able to close out their books even faster
Yeah.
because those
Yep.
gotchas are being removed. They're coding that spend when they're placing the order. So at the end of the month, finance is going in, they're just popping that data from response into their bookkeeping software, their accounts payable software. And we've heard of scenarios where real customer examples like Nimble Fulfillment, where their finance team was spending 2 days at the end of every month trying to
Mm.
reconcile, chase down these purchases, figure out why did we buy this? Where's the invoice for this? Should we pay it? It just
Yep.
starts to build up and build up
Yep.
and build up. And it was taking them 2 business days just to go through that. And we cut that down to 30 minutes to an hour for them, which was a huge transformation. So when you're an individual operator, yes, you feel the friction. Sometimes you're going to get a slap on the wrist, but really the ultimate pain comes from all of those bad habits compiling dozens of orders, dozens of vendors, dozens of buyers. And who does it land on at the end of the month? It's always going to be
Finance.
finance.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like there's no people respond to incentives, right? I mean, if you study that human psychology, they'll respond to incentives. And I think if you don't have a good way to measure it, then you can't necessarily create a very good KPI out of it. And now you can't kind of create an incentive out of it for anybody to do anything because they're just going to spend whatever, right?
Yeah.
Usually on the ops side with a ops manager or warehouse manager, they're very incentivized to kind of keep their labor costs low because that is a variable spend. They can control the hours, and also to have a high SLA, a high service level agreement with the customer. So orders turn around fast and they're accurate, and obviously run a safe operation. Like those
Mhm.
are kind of the three things. But what you spend on supplies and everything all rolls up in the P&L too, right? I mean, it's all part of the overall profitability of the company. Yet, I think, like what you're saying, there's just a bad habit, or maybe even a better word for it is just no habit. Like there's
Yeah.
no habits developed other than kind of a free for all. And so that person in finance now is not now they can actually kind of affect change and they can drive things, and the GM can see things and drive it and kind of hold their team much more accountable to to something that you really just can't do if it's out of sight and out of mind. And I think now with so much pressure, with maximizing EBITDA and all these metrics and everything, every dollar counts.
Yep.
And so, so I think it's definitely has a spot to provide visibility. I mean, you're measuring something, and now you can affect change. So you kind of said this, but when like I feel like this product bleeds over into both sides, like the ops side and the finance side.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that you assumed you started out your journey thinking that it was going to be ops, but then you found that it was finance. Like, what kind of brought you to that conclusion? Did you just start getting different feedback from people? Did you realize it wasn't resonating like it would? Like, what made you think that it was going to be all ops, and then kind of what made you pivot to more on the finance side?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this was actually a pretty recent insight, and it was something that was right underneath our nose where we were consistently going out to market and pitching ops leaders, and we were getting amazing face time. People were sitting down with us. They were going through the sales process with us, but they just weren't closing. We're like, what is going on here? And, we had customers on the other side who were so happy and were getting these crazy testimonials, like the one that I told you. We're like, what is the disconnect here? And really, that case study I mentioned earlier was the canary in the coal mine, when he mentioned, hey, ops is seeing a ton of value, but really finance is even happier with you guys. And they find that this is an invaluable tool for them. And that just kind of raised our eyebrows. And we ended up doing our launch, and launch went really well. We announced this big fundraise that we did. All the vanity metrics were there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when it came down to who was booking demos, none of them were ops people. We're like, that's interesting. And who was it? It was all finance people.
Yeah.
And when we started to sit down with them and have these conversations, it was a complete 180, where they were explaining to us the exact pain point that often we were trying to explain to ops people. They were just giving us our own pitch right back to us. And when we looked at the deals we closed in the past, again, right underneath our nose, we missed it. It was right there. Every deal we'd ever closed, finance was always involved in some shape or form in the process. We just didn't see it because ops was our foot in the door. They were our champions, right? They're the ones they're the end user at the end of the day, the one that's placing these orders. But really, the ultimate benefit, as I said, was coming downstream from finance. And so the way we think about it is, it's about building the trust of finance and delivering on that value prop, reducing the amount of time it takes for them to close out their books, giving them the peace of mind that they have full visibility into what's going on and they have the controls to proactively prevent rogue spend. But at the same time, on the ops side, we have to make sure we're loved by them. We have to make sure that it's actually less work for them to use us. We're meeting them at their existing habits. Many of our customers on the ops side, the end user, they've been purchasing the same way for decades. And so to ask them to adopt a new habit, to adopt a new software solution on top of the 100 other software tools who are pitching them or they have to use for 100 different workflows, the bar is insanely high in terms of the experience you have to deliver. It truly has to be less work for the operations team. And then downstream, again, it just compounds the reduction in work that is on finance's plate and all the other benefits that they get from working with us.
Yeah. And I think too, like, not only in my mind would this make things easier for the ops manager or the ops side who is spending that. So it's gonna give them time back that they can then go focus on operations, which is where they want to do, because that's where their main incentive is and their main desire is. But I also think that in doing that, this could make them a better ops manager, because a lot of times in my career you will see an ops manager that has a mentality of like, I don't worry about that, that's finance, right? Like I send that off to finance, or they'll let me know if we're doing good or bad, and that is an incomplete picture. So if you really want to progress up the chain in your career in ops, you have to understand this, right? Indirect spend, budgeting, how finance works, invoices, all those things. And the reason why they resist it, I think, is because it's so tedious, right? It takes them so long to do it, and it takes them away from their job. And so it's kind of like doing abs in the gym. People don't want to do abs in the gym because this is painful. So I'm just going to do the bench press, right? I'm going to go to the bench press, and this is where I'm going to go. But to really be a complete, fitness person, you need to exercise everything. So I would love for have something like this to help really develop, striving ops managers coming up the ranks to be more engaged and more aware of what's going on with the indirect spend on the finance side. So, there's some value there too, I think.
100%. And at the enterprise level, it's another flavor of this challenge, which is, all right, they now have a procurement team. So that accountability, it's now a little bit clearer who needs to take accountability for savings, for running a tight operation when it comes to the actual products that they're buying. And once you get to that stage where now you have 50 locations and you have hundreds of millions in revenue and up, it's a very different challenge that we've seen them
Yep.
facing, where the control becomes even more important because they've done that work to negotiate with vendors. But then really the challenge then, and you may have experienced this because you've worked at companies of different stages and sizes, at that enterprise level, the challenge becomes, how do you ensure people are actually buying the negotiated products? The work has been
Sure.
done, but people are still going off and buying stuff they shouldn't be. When they've negotiated with Staples, someone is going out and, all right, I'm already at Home Depot, so I might as well like swipe the P card for whatever else I need, that might have been a product that Staples offered for half the price for some office
Yep.
supply, for example. So it takes different flavors, and the challenge persists even as companies scale from mid-market to enterprise.
Yeah, and like you mentioned something there that ops people will see a lot, and that is like if you get audited by an in-house audit, like a lot of big companies will have corporate auditors, and they come in to audit to ensure that you are running operations in the way that they want, you're doing all the checks and everything. And sometimes we'll say like, well, why did employee X not do this? Or why did they do this? And the ops leader would be like, well, they knew not to do that, but they did it anyway.
Yeah,
So the auditor's like, well, that's a behavior issue.
yeah,
But really what the ops manager wants is to make it go away, right? They want that yoke that says, I don't have time and we're too big for me to manage all this behavior one by one by one. I need a system. I need a program that makes me not have to kind of think about this. And this to me seems like it's a little bit along those same lines. That true? I mean, true statement, or is that not
but
that
no,
far off?
100%, 100%. And like at the end of the day, it's always a design challenge, right? Like
Yeah,
it's never we like to say it's never a user error. Like it's always a design challenge, right? It's always like, if someone is failing to do one part of their job, you have to step away from that person specifically first and think about, what was it about the systems we've designed that allowed this to happen, right? And yeah, maybe if they do it 10 times in a row and it's some really critical
yeah,
thing, well, not 10 times. Let's say they do it 3 times in a row, 3 strikes, you're out. But really, like,
that's a good point.
if yeah, not 10 strikes.
10 strikes, you're out.
Yeah, yeah, it's too many. But really, like, all right, on that first strike, like, is it a problem with them or is it a problem with the system? And
Yeah,
typically, it's a problem with the system, right? It's they want to move quickly. They want to get the stuff they need, and it's about designing a system that allows them to move quickly and gives them freedom and agency, but at the same time, behind the scenes, someone is able to control the system and ensure the guardrails
perfect.
are in place.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what everybody, I mean, unless your company is just hiring clowns, but no company is, right? No company aside from a circus has
Yeah.
clowns working there, you know? I mean, in
Yeah.
general, most people want to do a good job. And if they make a mistake or something, it's usually not because they're a clown. It's
Yeah.
usually, like you said, there's something in the process and the system and the standard that we're running
Yeah.
that maybe didn't directly cause it, but it certainly was a contributing factor towards it.
100%.
Yeah. So you kind of alluded a little bit to this a little bit, but where's your sweet spot at? I mean, do you think that you appeal more towards those big type companies with many DCs across the country, or do you kind of find that sweet spot more in the like mid tier? And obviously, this can change over time because companies grow. But where do you kind of see yourself at in the market?
Yeah, I'd say right now it's very much like mid-market to enterprise light, we can call it. I know we can just
Yeah,
keep creating infinite terminology here, but what does
make
that
our own.
actually mean? It means organization that has at least a few locations to up to dozens, kind of in the enterprise light world. Um, Operating in retail, operating in logistics, so 3PLs, wholesalers, distributors, anyone who's in that stage where now they have a few hundred employees, significant revenue is coming in, and as a result, a big portion of that spend is going to be on operational supplies. And up until that point in time, no one has thought about it. It's just been something that is there. And we really want to be the easy button for them to say, all right, this is a 5-minute process to connect all your vendor accounts. We'll pull in all your purchase history. We'll give you controls that are scalable, that have an amazing user experience. So your team feels like they're shopping on Amazon, but really they're shopping from pre-approved products and those controls are in place. And then ultimately the cherry on top is you then have you have the tools to continuously monitor that spend and find savings. So that's really the sweet spot for us. And again, yeah, at the smallest level, we have customers who might have a couple locations. At the largest, we have customers who have dozens and dozens of locations that they're operating.
I got you. Now it feels to me like, and I'm gonna kind of ask you about you touched on this a little bit, like the nuts and bolts of what it looks like and tastes like and smells like when you come in and implement it and how it all goes. But it seems to me like it's a product where the customer is not necessarily interested in the features that you have, right? Like like what it looks like and the widget and all that. Like they're more so interested in kind of what it's going to solve for them, right?
Yeah.
Like either it's giving me visibility so I can run my organization from the top better, or it's saving me time. Did you find that where people are like, I don't really care what it looks like, I don't really care how it goes a little bit, but I'm just happy that it's solving X, Y, and Z problem. Is that kind of fair? And then walk me through what it does it look like when you put this to work at a company.
100%. No, you're spot on. And I think it's actually a pretty classic mistake for first-time founders, especially engineers or product people, building B2B software to fall in love with the product and fall in love with the features. And they want to pitch you on all the features. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, customers just care about, they have some pain and they just want someone to make it go away. And is it a consultant? Is it software? Whatever, it doesn't matter as long as that pain goes away and the effort and the cost of making it go away are justified relative to the size or magnitude of the pain, then people will move. People will
Yeah.
sign up and want to make that go away. So that's 100% what we've come across, and it's a huge part of how we thought about building our product, building our sales process, just breaking down barriers and breaking down friction points to just get them the results, because that's all they really care about at the end of the day.
Do you integrate with the existing ERP, or are you a standalone? Like, are you a bolt on to a ERP type thing?
Both. So we've had to be modular and flexible. I think a lot of people, the idea of an ERP integration is something that they'll float and say, hey, we want this. But then when push comes to shove, it comes with a lot of baggage on both sides, right? You got to go to IT, and IT has 100 other integrations, and it's going to take a year to do that. And like, again, when it comes to the result, what do they want? All right, we want to have visibility. We want to have controls. And at the end of the month, we need to make sure that this data is correctly coded and in our ERP system. So yeah, you can do that through an integration, or you could do that through just a really simple automation where you're exporting data from Response. We already have the data in the format that you need, and then you're uploading it to your ERP depending on which one you're using. So again, we just want to solve our customers' problems as quickly as possible. And so, yeah, sure, we can integrate with their ERP if they need us to, but often we like to challenge them on, well, why do you want that? And we like to just be honest about the friction points that will come on both sides in trying to then implement the solution if they truly, truly want us to use their ERP.
Yeah, I've went through a couple of ERP overhauls and integrations and WMS installs in my career, and one of the things I found is that people are in love with whatever their old system was. It's like an old pair of tennis shoes, or it's like an old Jeep, like an old beat up Jeep. It might not be pretty, it might not be the fastest, but I love this Jeep. I
Yeah.
know exactly how to make it go, and you got to hit this 2 times, and that's how you started in the whole thing. Like they figured out everything in that Jeep. And so sometimes you would think like, well, if I hand them a brand new Mercedes, why won't they should love it,
Mhm.
but they won't. They won't love the features of that Mercedes because they knew how to do their job in their Jeep, you know? And so I think you're really onto something by, hey, I'm not trying to sell you a Mercedes. I'm trying to sell you something that's going to make your life better. And don't worry about all the bells and whistles. It's going to solve this problem for you, you
Yeah.
know, because that's people are creatures of habit in my experience. And it just didn't work out
Yeah.
well. So, well, who have you worked with out there? I mean, I know you've mentioned a couple of names here and there, but just kind of so the audience has an idea of like scale and scope. Like, what are some of the organizations you've kind of had some early runs with or early success with?
Yeah, I mean, on the larger side, we work with a e-commerce aggregator public company called Etarian. They've done a roll up of buying tons of smaller e-commerce brands and built a really big company there. On the logistics side, we work with a company called Warehouse Specialist Inc. They've got about 30 locations across the U.S., all the way down to the smaller side. You know, we work with um, 3PLs with even a single location sometimes if they really are experiencing the pain point of needing control and
Mhm.
visibility. We work with 3PLs like Nimble Fulfillment is one out of Utah. Um, and yeah, then there's some other logos that I can't yet talk about,
Yeah.
but very soon,
Yeah.
and names that all the listeners here would know. So excited to be able to share those when we can. But yeah, for now, we've had a great opportunity of working with organizations up and down the chain and just
Good.
getting a ton of feedback from them, ton of hands-on experience. We're always making sure to onboard new facilities in person. So a lot of flying around the country, boots on the ground, meeting with
Yeah.
operators, understanding their lives, understanding their challenges, and then getting out of their way and getting the job done for them.
Yep. Now, I mean, do you ever? I mean, the product seems incredible to me. And coming from ops, I know that there is a gap here, and I know that this is solving a legitimate problem. I mean, there's millions, maybe more of dollars out there that are going out of companies this way. But do you get pushback? I mean, do you ever get pushback from organizations that they don't want to adopt it for whatever reason, whether it's the implementation or they like their old Jeep, or how, and if you get that pushback, I mean, how do you go about it? I mean, do you try to continue to convince them, or do you just kind of pass and go on to the next company? Like what are some of those things that people brought up to you that might not want they might not want to adopt it?
Yeah, typically it's at both kind of extremes of the spectrum of company size. So when companies are really small, um, they often just won't have the pain, right? And what they want is very different. They want response to be basically like Costco business price. Like, all right, I
Uh,
sign up and like I've got my Costco card and like I'm gonna
yeah.
get a better deal than everyone else. Which like certainly there's room for that in the future. And we want to entertain that in the future. And we're working on some really exciting ideas there to provide that service. Um, and then at the other end, enterprise, they might already have an enterprise procurement solution, Coupa, SAP Ariba, you name it. These are like the giants in the space. That's not to say that they wouldn't work with us. Often,
Mhm.
actually, we find that we provide a lot of benefits that those solutions don't provide. But there's more process, there's more risk for us, honestly, in pitching someone who has 500 or 1,000 locations. Takes a lot of time to service those
Yeah.
customers. Um, and so at both ends, it's really just been more a function of focus. It's not that we
Mhm.
can't service them in the long run. We will service them all, but as of right now, it's just laser focus on kind of this band right in the middle where
Yeah.
got enough spend. where they have enough orders, they have enough locations, enough buyers that it's created the pain, but they haven't implemented some tool already to solve 90% of the job.
Yeah. But I think one of the things that works in your advantage is in this industry now, there is so much turnover with people. I mean, people in high and leadership positions and management positions move from company to company a lot more than maybe they did 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is then it sort of pollinates other places. So I use response at the company I'm at, then I leave and I go to another company. They don't know about it. They kind of spread it for you because they pitch it for you because they want to use that product because they like the benefits so much. And so that is like, it's sort of like the industry. I've seen a lot of reports where they're like, hey, we want to try to reduce turnover and we develop these managers and then they leave 2 years later. And what can we do to get them to stay 10 years? So on the one side, I think there's some validity to that. But on the other side, like where you're at, you're like, no, like I'm happy if people go to lots of different companies as long as they remember response when they go there. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
No,
and
we
for
witnessed that
any program.
firsthand. Literally today. It's funny, like an hour ago that happened for someone who
We didn't
used
plan this.
yeah, literally someone who was an employee of one of our first customers. They left and now they're at a new company and they're like, hey, rinse
Yeah.
and repeat. Like let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, and then you don't even have to sell it, right? Like
Yeah.
they do it. So, I think that's just sort of an interesting, peculiar byproduct of the amount of turnover that happens in the industry. So, well, what's on the future, man? I mean, what do you got going on? Response the rest of the year, 2025 and beyond. I know you don't want to reveal too much of the secret sauce that's going on behind the scenes, but well, what types of things are you working on in the future, and what can people expect?
Yeah, I think I'd say in the near term, it's all about leaning into these finance centric flows. So we've
Yeah,
built a really killer platform for operators. They can go in, it's an insanely easy experience for them to buy what they need. It's controlled, it's tracked all in one place. And now, really, we want to invest in those downstream workflows. So helping finance leaders automatically reconcile spend. So we're doing things like predictively GL coding spend for people.
yeah.
They don't have to manually do this tedious task
Oh,
of
that's great.
labeling spend the same way they do every single week. We're doing things like automating the three-way matching process. So working on a way to scan invoices that come in, match the subtotals up with the original PO, match it up with the bill of lading or delivery receipt to then just say, all right, green light, green means go, saving finance teams a ton of time there. And then in the long term, over the next year or few years, really, the big
Yeah.
vision for us is we want to be company's digital procurement officer for all of this operational spend. So we're
Nice.
already working on ways to pull out insights that even if you had a team, you would have to hire data scientists to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're doing things like SKU consolidation. So because all that spend is in one place, we're able to look at all of someone's spend history, all of the products they buy. We're able to match up similar products, apples to apples, in your product history, and suggest opportunities for consolidation. So then you can get better prices. You can hit those higher price breaks. Um, and just investing more on the side of how can we find these savings opportunities for our customers, because that's the final piece of the puzzle. It's all right, I didn't have visibility, now I have visibility. I didn't have a way to control what my team is buying, now I have a way to control it. All right, now that all that's, I have a strong foundation, I can start picking away. 80-20 rule, go after the biggest categories, consolidate SKUs, take that out to market, bid it out to market to get better prices. We want to provide that entire end-to-end experience so that teams don't have to think about this stuff.
Awesome. Where can people find out more about you?
They can find us on our website. That's tryresponse.com. That's www.tryresponse.com. response.com, or they can find me on LinkedIn at Keivan Shahida. My name will be up on the screen, but that's Keivan, last name Shahida. I'm probably the only one that's on there, so it'll be easy to find.
I can
And
verify that. It's true. You're the only one. Good deal. Well, I promise to put a link to Response up on my website. So it'll be right there when people go and watch this podcast. And listen, man, thank you very much again for coming on the show. This is like very insightful. I think you've got a great product for the ops leaders that are out there. You know, I really think that they should consider this and explore this and look you up. I wish you the best of success, man. I think you've got a really good thing going, and thank you again for coming on the show, and I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Thanks for having us.
You got it, man. All right, guys. Well, that concludes today's show. Thank you to Keivan again for coming on. Very cool product. Very cool product. I hope all of you go check that out. And so as for the Warehouse Underground, again, if you have not signed up for the community, please sign up for the community. Lots of cool stuff going on in there. Lots of great content. You guys will love it. And we just spiffed up the graphics in there too. So it'll be really good. So with that, I will see you next time at the next podcast, number 8.